Sun's out, bike's out, camera's out. Hi, welcome back. Thank you for everyone who watched the Secret Cabin film. We're up to about 30,000 views on that now, so that's absolutely fantastic. Lots of really interesting questions as well. I've tried to answer as many of those as I can. And there's also the extra films that go alongside that main film. So there's a film about the AJP PR7 behind me. There's also a film about the luggage we used, the Kriega Luggage, and the adventurespec clothing. So this film is about two things in particular that came up in conversation and questions on the back of those other films. Which is very pertinent to the adventurespec light is right philosophy, and also so the luggage I used was the Kriega OS Base system, and that comes with a base unit which is fairly universal. It can fit on a lot of enduro and trail style bikes, and then on that you mount your Kriega panniers, and for this I used the Kriega OS 12s. So if you have a KTM 790, a KTM 1090 or a Yamaha T700, Kriega makes specific OS bases for that bike. So go check it out. They're made specifically to mount onto that bike. And I spoke to the guys at Kriega, and I think the general philosophy was that they wanted to create a base system that worked really, really well on those popular models rather than something that kind of worked okay. So for the AJP PR7, I'm using the standard Kriega OS base. I use that on my KTM 450 EXC really well. I think it was originally designed for enduro style bikes, as well as things like the 701 and the KTM 690. It does fit this AJP PR7. I didn't have any problems. I think there's room to improve it a little bit. It's a little narrow, and the AJP, because it holds the fuel in the rear, pushes out quite wide. But in principle, it was absolutely fine. So I'm just going to talk you through step by step how I did it. So I think the first thing to say with this is that I had to use my head a little bit for mounting this system. I think I came up with quite a neat solution, but it wasn't that obvious off the bat. So if you follow the Kriega instructions, they ask you to mount drill some holes in your plastics on your rear fender and mount some of their mounting loops on there, and use those as anchor points to mount the OS base to. Now, I didn't want to drill the plastics. Another option would be to put a rear luggage rack on the top. I did look at that, but I feel like it puts too much weight over the back wheel, pushes all the weight further back, and I want to keep the weight quite central. So I developed a different option. So Kriega sell subframe loops, which are just little straps that can mount on a subframe that you pull tight, and then they've got a little loop to attach to their systems. Kriega used this particular kind of hook system. So I took my rear plastics off. I attached some subframe loops to the subframe, reattached my plastics and left them sticking out of the side. And that created a point where I could then either mount directly onto those loops or I took a strap off a Kriega US5 bag and hooked that across, so I kind of made a grab handle on the back which you could loosen or tighten. The other thing to mention there is, while I'm on that point, is I also added some of those subframe loops a bit further forwards under the seat. So when I don't need to use them, I can kind of leave them tucked away under the seat. But when I'm not riding with luggage, I need to take my toolkit with me, which I keep in a Kriega US5 pack. So I can pull those subframe loops out, put the seat back on. It gives me 4 mounting points to attach my fairly heavy tool bag to. Now, it does mean it sits on the seat a little bit, but I find it doesn't actually affect where I want to sit. Like I said, another option would be to put a rear luggage rack on, but yeah, I just want to keep the weight off the rear end of the bike. So I kind of, that's working really well for me. It's quite a minimal, neat solution which you can adapt depending on what you want to be taking with you. So going back to the OS base, I didn't need the extra subframe loops, so they get tucked away under the seat. I put the handle strap on the back. Now the OS base just sits on top. I then use the rear straps on that handle. I put them through and hook them onto themselves. At the other end of the OS base, it's designed to, there's a strap that's designed to go through the frame of your bike and then go back on itself, and that's how you kind of create an anchor point. Now on the PR7 it's quite particular. It doesn't fit around the main frame that goes down to the foot pegs. The gap between the fuel tanks and the frame is too tight. But what it does have is down at the foot peg end, there's some M8 threaded holes, and I used those to attach some cleats, anchor points. I don't know what the technical term is. I think you can actually buy these from luggage manufacturers. I think Giant Loop makes some. I didn't actually know that at the time, so I got my friend Adam at Rally Raid to laser cut just some simple ones, and sprayed them up, and I put them on, and then I use those as a way of anchoring the other end of the OS base to the bike. And once you've got those tight and you've got the top tight on both sides, it's not going to move anywhere. Okay, so that's the main bit of it. I think it's a really neat solution of getting that OS base onto the bike. Also means that if the OS base isn't on the bike, you haven't really affected the bike that much. You haven't got kind of bolts hanging off it and all the rest of it. So once that's on, then it's really a simple case of just adding your luggage. So I added my OS 12s on either side, and then I used the Giant Loop Rogue dry bag on the top. And that just gets added with some Kriega cam straps, which are absolutely fantastic. I talked about that before. They're just cam straps, but they're very good cam straps. And that kind of secures on really, really tight. And then for this trip, I had a US 5, which also had a tarp in it, which I didn't actually end up using, so I didn't need to take that. But for this trip, I just added that on the back using the strap system that the US 5 comes with. I feel that it's a really neat, simple solution. I like traveling light. I don't kind of have a lot of luggage. I don't have kind of stuff hanging off the bike. I do everything I can to keep my the heavy parts of my luggage at the bottom of those OS 12s. So my toolkit is in the bottom of those bags. I want to keep the weight low as possible. And yeah, it doesn't move. I mean, you can see from the film, it was, yeah, it worked really, really well. I always make sure to keep all my camping gear in my roll top bag, because that's the easiest thing to get on and off when I get to camp. And that's got my tent, sleeping bag and mattress in it, so that can get taken off really, really quick and easy. So yeah, that's it. Super quick, super simple, easy to install. I'm going to go weigh it now. I'm curious myself as to see how much it weighs. I don't think it's going to be a huge amount, but yeah, let's go see. The airport scales. Would it have excess baggage applied? Anyone? Any guesses? Any guesses? Let's give it a go. Stop. Okay. 15 kilograms on the nose. 15.01 kilograms. That works for me. And a little bit of luggage on my back with my camera gear. But yeah, that's it, 15 kilograms luggage. What have you got? On this trip, I didn't take any cooking gear and I didn't take any spare footwear. It was a short trip. It was 5 days. I done this kind of trip a lot before, and my pigeon. So it was a fairly short tech trip, close to home. I've done this kind of trip a lot before, and I've kind of learned that my cooking gear really only gets used to make a hot coffee in the morning, and as a real emergency in case we can't get food somewhere. So I kind of risked it this time. Now, if I was going to take gear, it's kind of, it looks like this. So this is an MSR stove. You can actually get stoves half the size of that now. Spork, some gas, and a cooking tin, which also acts as a cereal mug and a coffee mug. So yeah, that doesn't take up a huge amount of space. And then with regards to the footwear, yeah, I mean, if you were going out and you got wet feet and your boots were soaking wet and you had to wear that all day at camp as well, that would be an issue. The last tech trip I did across Northern Europe, I took a pair of trainers and they just didn't get used. You know, Crocs, I'm 40 years old, I'm allowed to wear them. A lot of people use these, they're pretty good, although they are absolutely huge. So I probably wouldn't take these on a longer trip. I would probably opt for just some flip-flops or just something as small as I could find, you know. But yeah, just something that's not going to take up a huge amount of space. But yeah, on this trip, I didn't take any of that. I didn't take any of that. What else would I take on a longer trip? Maybe a first aid kit if I was going further afield. I've also got all my camera gear, but that was in my rucksack on my back. So yeah, I mean, I think you can travel pretty light. I guess it's handy to have a bit of spare room in your bag, pick up some food that you want to take back to camp with you, a baguette if you're in France, bottle of wine if you're in Italy. But my general experience is that you can live without an awful lot. And if you don't have cooking gear, it forces you to spend money in the local economy and try some of those local foods and teas and coffees and all the rest of it, which is what it's all about, isn't it? Hey, thank you for watching, guys. I hope this was helpful. Maybe you're considering using the OS Base, so, you know, yeah, it's a great system, it's easy to use. And maybe, you know, go out, weigh your own gear, see how it compares to this setup, and yeah, just see what you can live without. I think once you get going and you've got a few of these trips under your belt, you'll settle on a system that works for you, and you'll be surprised at how little you need to take. Oh, before I forget, Round the World Paul, RTW Paul, he's done some big trips on a KTM 500 EXC, and he's got a really good video that goes through all of the kit that he's taken on much longer trips than me. You know, he's literally around the world, disappear into the wilderness kind of rider. So yeah, go check him out. And if you like this and you want to see more of it, please subscribe. We've got a load more Adventure Spec films coming up soon. I've got a busy plan for the rest of this year to get out. We've got more hard parts coming, more clothing. We're going to be out having a little bit more micro adventures at home because COVID is around and we can't really hit the road internationally. But yeah, plenty more fun to be had. So yeah, stick with us, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.